Hello again everybody, and welcome to the final how-to guide for how to write your qualitative report. Today we will be discussing the discussion, which will be the final component of your lab report. The best way to think about the discussion is that the entire discussion is like a conclusion, much like how the whole literature review is the introduction to the project. For the purpose of your paper, the discussion should consist of 3 paragraphs. In the first paragraph, you are going to link the findings from your participant to the findings of the established literature, most of which you will have already sourced and discussed in the literature review. Section 2 will ask you to outline the limitations of your study. What do you think were the variables that may have impacted the results? And finally, the third paragraph is going to ask you to describe the implications and possible avenues for future research. What are the implications, you ask? Well, this is kind of like, what are the implications, you ask? It's kind of the, why do I care? What makes this research important? Let's get into it. For section 1, this is probably the most difficult part of the discussion because you're going to be asked to link the things you have written about in your findings section to the things you have written about in your literature review. A sample couple of sentences may read something like, Kate reported that she finds herself resisting change when she is fearful of the unknown. This particular sentence was drawn directly from the findings section. It doesn't have to be quoted either, but rather it can be extrapolated or inferred. So this exact sentence wasn't in the findings section, however, the notion was. This supports the findings of blank, who in their study found that employees were more likely to resist change when they were uninformed or surprised by it, and so on and so forth. So you will need to use references in this section, and it's always good if you can present multiple articles to support your evidence or even potentially contrast it. Section 2 is fairly straightforward. This is where you discuss what the limitations of this research are. This paragraph will generally start off by stating the limitations of this study are, or were, and this study was limited by a number of variables, etc. You don't want to completely rubbish your research, however. Try to identify 2 or 3 good, solid limitations with this research to demonstrate that you understand what the potential flaws could be. And finally, section 3, why is this research important and what can future researchers do to extend upon the findings of this one? Again, this is where you get to be creative. I'm interested in your ideas. I still don't want you to use personal pronouns, so no I, keep it objective, but tell me, what are the important parts of this research and how can they affect the real world? How can I use the knowledge that you generated here to enhance my knowledge of real world interactions in organizations? And finally, if you had the opportunity to extend this research, what kinds of things would you like to add or do instead? As always, guys, you've got this, you're nearly there. Good luck.